Hey, this is my final game go through for the WTC 2024, and at this point we were at game 6. We had lost 2 rounds for the team. I had drawn 2 games as well, and we were going to fight for the very last chance we had of actually landing a podium place. So that was what we were going to try and do. It was not going to be easy, and it was now, at that point, it was out of our own hands. We were dependent on other teams doing well or doing badly, which is never a good place to be. So let's go and see what happened. We got matched up against USA 1. And they were a pretty good team. They were doing fairly well at this point. Had lost some games, had won some games, and were, of course, captained by John Ross, whom you have seen on this channel. So this was actually a brilliant opportunity for us to hang out. We've talked quite a few times, and I really like John. He's a really decent guy, and we decided that for funsies we would do a before and after picture, and this is us before. Everyone's happy and going into the game with a good sense of worth and what was going to happen. Let's see how it turned out. The matchups actually ended me and John together, which we were both pretty chuffed about. We were really happy that we finally get to play a game. We hadn't actually played a game before, me and John, although we have seen each other at multiple tournaments at this point. So that was always good. The only thing that was bad was it was a British Civil War, like Brits on Brits, and I had, of course, brought my Up and Atom Brits with 4 Gurkhas, 2 Stewards, 4 early war motorcycles, and land matches. John had brought, also British, with Up and Atom, 2 Crusader AAs, which are anti-Stewards. They're really brilliant. And 4 Para Gurkhas, which, are immune to flamethrowers. So they're better Gurkhas, basically, right? 2 PPA Jeeps, that's the flamethrower Jeeps, and a 25-pounder. Now, the plan. For me, the plan here, and by the way, I got to pick sides, and I picked the one that's up here, the blue side. John got the red side. For me, the plan was always going to be to try and hit John's army in one location, to try and isolate parts of his army and hit that one part very hard, because I was more mobile than John was. All the motorcycles are really mobile, and I knew that at long ranges, at least, my Stewards could go up against his Crusaders. So what he really wanted was to flank me. He wanted to push up along the flanks and shoot at me from the sides, because the Stewards have weak sides, right? So I was predicting that he might try and do that, which meant that I could at least have 1 Steward in the center. And as soon as I saw how John deployed, I knew that my game plan was sound. Because John deployed, and he made a bad mistake here. He deployed a PPA Jeep over here, giving me just enough line of sight so that if I drove up somewhere along here, I got line of sight down to this Jeep and I could shoot him, which I did with the first move of a Steward. It came in from the reserves and shot the PPA Jeep, killed it. So that was me ahead on points. And it only went downhill from there, because John had deployed his 25-pounder somewhere in here, I think, and then all of his infantry around this house. He forgot that I had a multi-launcher. Eek. That was a bad mistake. On this far flank, he placed his horse-drawn limbers and truck and lieutenants and a light mortar, so that it was out of the way and safe. But that only led me to believing that I maybe be able to push up the flank here. So I placed a unit of Gurkhas over here. I placed some motorcycles in between. They were always going to try and push towards this centerpiece. I placed all my Gurkhas in this area here. And the plan was to run them along the walls behind this house all the way up. And then at close range start shooting and see if I could whittle down some of his Paragurkhas to a size where I could manage them in close combat perhaps. I placed my multi-launcher down here where it could see the house and where it could see John's 25 pounder. Along with that, I placed my mortar, I believe. Can't believe where that went. I think it did. Yeah. So that was the plan. My plan was to try and punish John for gathering all his forces in this small area. Because if you clump up against a British player, there's the forward artillery observer, and because I had a multi-launcher, there's the multi-launcher. Both of these can really punish you for that. So I was going to try and leverage that. Now, did my priorities change? Nope, not really. The Gurkhas on the flank here pushed up along the flank, ended up doing some charging down here and charging down here, and ended up killing all of this. John's area in here, if you can see this blue circle, this is the blue circle where all my artillery bombardments came down, where my multi-launcher came down, and I hit stuff. I hit Gurkha units, I hit his 25 pounder, everything got pinned, everything got shot to pieces. He had very little chance because he was going down half the time. The other half of the time he got pinned. So he had very little chance to do anything there. My motorcycles also drove up here and shot into his areas here, and his units just started losing dudes. In the end, I pushed all my Gurkhas up along this wall and shot him. I even pushed some Gurkhas this way at the end to try and capture one lieutenant who was over here somewhere. Everything else got charged and killed in the center. At some point, John started making desperate choices and started doing up and at him on his Gurkhas. They were down to 5-man units. He still charged my 7 to 8-man Gurkhas and started losing close combats. So at that point, he was just desperate. At the very end of the game, his Crusaders were actually at the point where he always wanted them to be. So one of the Crusaders had been dueling it out with the Stuart, which had killed the PPA Jeep over here. I had driven the Stuart into this ruin just to have hard cover as an ablative armor and just sit there and shoot his Crusader. In the end, though, the Crusader actually managed to hit and kill that Stuart. So that was bad. But I was so much ahead on dice at that point, it didn't matter at all. The other Crusader tries to move up, tries to get my Stuart in the flank, doesn't manage to do it, tries to kill some of the other units in here, doesn't manage to do it. It had very little effect. So, here we have the after picture, John crying his eyes out, me very proud of myself. And you can see the kill dice over here at the end of turn 6. We don't manage to get us to turn 7, but the kill dice is 13-2. So, yes, you can win massively against Gurkhas. It can be done. And it wasn't the fact that I also had Gurkhas that decided it. Yes, that decided 2 of the dice. I killed 2 of his Gurkhas in close combat because he charged me. The rest of his dice were just shot to pieces by indirect fire and direct fire. Shot to pieces. I chose the right side. I had the right plan. Focusing everything at a point where I knew I could bombard him to oblivion meant that I could push up without him being able to do anything about it. Right? He could charge me, but yeah, that was always going to be dicey, especially because he had already taken losses, right? So, yeah. Did John make mistakes? He made one. He forgot about my multi-rocket launcher and clumped up around that house. That was a bad mistake. Flanking the Crusaders, was that also a mistake? I actually think so. It ended up being a mistake. I think it would have been better had he pushed both of the Crusaders at one point, preferably on his right flank, my left, because that might have meant that he could stop more of my units on that flank from pushing into the center. He might have been able to win more there. And my Stuart on my very right flank, his left, would possibly not have been able to affect the game in a major way because it was way out on that flank. It wasn't going to do much from there. So I think he should have centered his Crusaders more. I think they should have come in either the center or his right flank. And in the end, in desperation, once you're down that many dice, he started doing desperate things, right? And desperate things almost never work in bold action. So, but you have to try. And yeah, that was definitely not enough. So, in the end, I took a major win. John told me that he hadn't been beaten like that in a long time, and I think the word was trounced. So yeah, and I felt that too. It was really, felt like I was at the top of my game. I had complete control over what was going on. The multi-launchers really helped, and I guess I, at this point, felt like the opposite of what I had felt against Raloka, where he basically killed my army with multi-launchers. But I have to say that most of John's army was not killed by multi-launchers. They got pinned, they got lost a few guys or whatever, but it didn't kill all his army. What killed his army was me pushing into his center with my Gurkhas. That was what really started killing him. So, yeah, that was the end of my WTC. At that point, we could just sit down and wait. We were having drinks. The Welsh broke out the bourbon, and everyone was going to the bar where very healthy drinks were being poured by the staff. It was 50-50 rum and coke, and decent rum too. So, and everyone was like pretty happy. We knew at that point that the Spanish had won because England had narrowly lost to them on the very last dice. So we knew that the Spanish were doing it again. What we didn't know was how the rest of the teams would distribute themselves. In the end, we came fourth, right behind the Italians and England, and then Spain in first place. So congratulations to everyone who attended. I'm sorry to the opponents I trounced, John in particular. And thank you all for turning up. It was a very enjoyable weekend. Thank you to Dan Lane for hosting and TOing the event. Thank you to Dave Noland for being the EO for the event. Yeah, it went very, very smoothly. I think it was the smoothest run WTC I've been at. But let's see, because I'm also doing a review with Michael C, and you know he doesn't hold back on his opinions. So we shall see what we come up with for that. But this has been recorded before we do that, so we shall see. Anyways, that was all my games. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed me retelling them. I found out that after 6 games, it's really, really hard to recall what actually happened in the individual games. So I think most of you will have had that same experience going to tournaments and just, what did I do? I can't remember. What did he have? I can't remember. And then where did he go? Yeah, that happened to me in a massive way here. So some of the games I really messed up, but John's game, I really remember every detail of that, right? Good. I will see you next video. Cheers.